Stops, launches deep. Jalen Guyton, he's got it! Touchdown Chargers! What a throw!
Hello, and welcome to another episode of ChargersCast. I'm your host, Kirk Brewer. ChargersCast is a podcast about everything Los Angeles Chargers. We are a podcast by fans, for fans. So thanks for joining us this week. I am joined by my regular buddy, friend to the podcast, Andrew Loya from Bolt Casa. Andrew, glad to have you here, buddy. I know, how that last game went. It'd be easy to just kind of not be here. So I'm appreciative of you being here, hanging out, and we're gonna talk Bolts, buddy. How you doing?
I'm doing fine. That, watching the game just kind of dwindle away in that moment. It was a slow bleeding process, especially because you're watching the game and you're kind of watching it slip through. We're watching it slip through our fingers. But then you see little signs of hope, like Ladd took it to the house at the end there. I'm like, all right, so we need 2 scores, 2 conversions. We got this. And then it just gets a little worse at a time, the special teams failure. But I'm doing good. We'll unpack this game, but for the most part, I'm happy with our Chargers. I'm happy we made it. And big picture thing here is we overachieved. And at the end of the day, the season's going to come to an end, and the best of our Charger football is ahead of us.
Yeah. This is the time where, put it this way, if you're not a Chargers fan, then it probably didn't hurt when the clocks hit triple zeros at the end of that game. But if you were a Chargers fan, yeah, it hurt. Okay. That being said, you can't just lash out. Okay. That's just not realistic. You have to take a step back and a few deep breaths, maybe a day or two, just kind of don't think too much about it. Just let it soak in. And then once you've taken that step back, put the whole season in context, right? Because nobody likes to see their team win. But guess what? 31 teams are going to be losers. When it's all said and done, there's only one team that's going to come out on top of the pile every season. So it's a good perspective to have. I had this thought during the game, but I didn't act out on it, but my youngest son did. We were at a party the other night, and we were talking about the game. He's a Chargers fan. I raised him properly, and he told me he turned off the game before halftime, and I'm like, I thought about it. Okay. There was a point where I'm like, and then I had to tell myself, this is what we live for as fans. Okay. Relish this moment. It's a playoff game. It's the first season of Harbaugh, of the Harbaugh era. Even if they just spank us the rest of the game, sit back and take it in. Don't just, just shut the door and walk away. Just absorb it all and take it in. See where, watch the play, watch everything and learn from it. So I appreciate what my son did, but I had to tell myself, no, this is a whole season's culminated in this point. Am I going to shortchange myself as a fan and not watch it through to conclusion? So I stuck it out. I think most Chargers fans are feeling the same way. I know there's some who are maybe feeling worse, maybe some that aren't feeling nearly as bad. But that being said, we are going to unpack this game, okay? In this podcast, we're going to cover the Wild Card Weekend Chargers-Texans game. We're going to go through it, give our observations, and, a few pointers, a few things, negatives, some positives. There's plenty of both in there, believe it or not. And then we're going to take a step back, even bigger picture, and we're going to cover we're going to give a bigger perspective on the whole 2024 season. And as fans, what the season was now that it's in the books retrospectively, and then reflect on kind of, where we think we're going to go from here as a team heading forward in this new Harbaugh era. And then last but not least, we'll kind of go through a preview, if you will, of the postseason, because we're officially now in the postseason. So kind of what to look forward to, where are some concerns, needs. We've got a lot of free agents on this team, unrestricted free agents on this team. So we'll kind of go through all of that as well. So this week, this is one of the kind of drown your sorrows cervezas. If you don't have one, go grab one, sit down, grab a seat, and hang out with us for a little while. We're going to get into this. So, salute Bolt fans. Love to have you here. Really appreciate you guys. Andrew, let's get into this game. It wasn't pretty, dude. 12 loss. Quite frankly, it was ugly. It wasn't that it was not pretty. It was ugly. There was a lot of ugliness in this game, and you can start out with those 4 interceptions that Justin threw. We'll get into those a little bit too. We had opportunities early. We didn't capitalize. We were kind of chatting about this before the pod. Those 2 field goals that should have been touchdowns. Our first drive, and then we get a turnover, and we don't capitalize. And that's when you go, uh-oh. If we're not capitalizing, this is a playoff game, right? It's win or go home, and you got to capitalize on those things. So that was the first kind of, uh-oh, this may not be our day. And then that play that CJ pulled out of his rear end, was like 3rd and 16. We had those guys backed up and fumbled the shotgun snap. And the ball, that damn oblong football, just kind of bounced the right way. And he takes it off to his right, and we got all kinds of Chargers chasing him, and he throws the damn thing late across the middle, hits his receiver. There's no Charger around for like 10 yards, man. And they convert, and then they go down and score a touchdown on that drive. So that was kind of, for me, that was the big momentum shift in the game. It's uneven in all 3 phases. You can't point one phase of this game and say, oh, it was all on Justin. Oh, the defense let us down. Oh, special teams didn't hold up their end of the bargain. Across the board, all 3 phases of the game, they were not up to playoff caliber football. I don't know what it was, because Harbaugh gets his teams ready to play, but they weren't up to snuff, man. And then I'll just kind of conclude the overview here, because I want to get your 2, 3, 4, 5 cents on this too. But, dude, McConkey is legit. He is absolutely 100% legit. Ortiz got 2 first-rounders in this past year's draft, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I mean, at first, when we didn't capitalize on those first 2 turnovers, that's when I kind of had that, oh, shoot moment. Like, these are the type of games that you have to do something with that. And I was like, field goals instead of touchdowns could be worse. So then even before the game started, like, I knew immediately where my attention was going, and that was to their defensive front. I was looking at Daniil Hunter, and I was looking at Will Anderson. And I was looking at that defensive front and how we were going to approach them. And sure enough, the first thing that I noticed, and it was so frequent, it would be our right side of the line. They were just piled up over there on Joe Alt's side. Joe Alt had his hands full. He held his own. He had his moments where he didn't play his best. But Jamari Salyer got his butt whipped. Everyone got whipped on the offensive line. They were in a complete blender the whole game. Just in Justin's lap, constantly causing pressures. We saw our poor guy get sacked too many times. And then just the overall thing that I saw is they matched up if not equal with us, then they were just better than us on the other side of the ball, step for step. So when you add all those things together, for Justin's sake, it makes it really hard to find opportunities in the game. It didn't look good. It was a struggle. And then we get to Justin. And I got a text immediately when Justin rolled out, threw it crossbody into double coverage, and Kamari Lassiter picked it off. And he said, my buddy said, what a terrible throw, crossbody to a pick and double coverage. And I said, yeah, like, he doesn't know what I know. Like, Justin can make that throw.
Yep.
He just didn't. And, he's still in an ankle brace. I don't know if there's some aspects to his mobility that are hindering some of his throws. At the end of the day, Justin didn't play his best game. He made some questionable decisions, and his throws were not on the mark. My overall opinion on him hasn't changed. I still think that this guy is a top 5 quarterback. But in moments like these, the media especially, and that was one thing that was racing through my mind is, this game hurts the Chargers, but like Justin as our leader, the media is got the pitchforks out for him. And anyone who's watching, you guys see almost as you're scrolling through your phone, everyone is just jumping on top of Justin. So I was thinking like, boy, this really affects like, how the media is definitely going to talk about Justin. And it is what it is. Like I said, it doesn't hurt my opinion on Justin, but there's just a lot of scrutiny coming his way on the performance. But it's a shared thing across the whole board. The team got whipped. Everybody got their butt kicked. We had some decent performances from certain individuals who played hard. But at the end of the day, they had a scheme. They were better. They were the better team that day. And that's the one thing that kind of sucks about this loss, Kirk, is I wanted our guys to put up a better fight. Hopefully this game was a closer football game than what it was, and it kind of wasn't. And that was kind of the sucky thing about the game.
Yeah, that's always kind of my thing is at least, make it competitive to the end. And then if you just lose because, last minute field goal, the ball didn't go your way, a bad call, whatever. But in this case, they just pulled away from us. We had our opportunity early, and then we weren't sharp. We weren't on point. A couple observations, a couple comments about your observations, because they're all 100% on point. Same stuff I was looking at, literally. I think we talked about it last pod, I believe is where we talked about it, where I was like, look, if I were their ends, I wouldn't be rushing Slater and Alt. I would be playing games and coming up the middle. Guess what they did? They played games all day and came up. It's on tape, okay? That is our weak link. That is our Achilles heel, is left guard, center, right guard. They took advantage of it. I would have too, okay? D'Amico Ryans is a stud defensive guy, okay? You don't have to be a stud defensive guy to look at a couple games of tape on us and go, well, that's their Achilles heel, so we're going to rush right up the middle. And guess what? That makes it really hard on a quarterback anyway. If the pressure's up the middle, it's way easier to get pressure on the outside and get flushed out of the pocket off the edges. But guys coming up in your face, you can't step up and throw the ball, right? And so the other thing I would say is I only attribute one interception to Justin, and that was the one you pointed out, the one where he rolled out a little bit to his right and threw a crossbody, and man, he only missed that thing by that much, okay? 2-3 inches, he was off on that ball, but he did, okay? That was all on him. Every other one is either pressure right up in his face and he couldn't throw the ball with any velocity, or it literally clanked off of somebody's hands. And so, the high one to Ladd, that was because he couldn't follow through. And so those are team interceptions. They all go on Justin. And like you said, the media is going to be just pitchforks and torches. And, comes with territory. That's, and Justin knows that, that's why he gets the big bucks. But I know he's also got a really good support system, and I guarantee you guys like Chase Daniel probably called him right away and said, bro, okay, just letting you know, you got support here, man. We're not here to bash you. We know what you were dealing with in that game, right? So another point on that is really only one of those were Justin. And then besides Ladd, he had nobody. Okay. Disley wasn't catching shit that game. 5 attempts, 0 receptions. Name that receiver. QJ. Okay. Week before, the guy balls out and has a career game, and then he can't catch a cold. Part of the problem, a few of those balls Justin was throwing to him under pressure. Okay. Not all 5 of them, though. Okay. And so if you go look at the passing stats, it's a joke. There's one guy up top who you throw him a ball and it like sticks to his damn hands. And by the way, he set a NFL rookie record for the most yards in a playoff game. Ladd McConkey. Dude's a stud. And then it's just like crap. Everybody under him. So one of the key areas that we will be talking about as we are talking about rolling into postseason. So, yeah, man, you nailed it. One thing I want to point out as we kind of drill down a little bit into this game, something I thought that was going to help this issue that Justin was dealing with in this game, and it never came to fruition. Justin never ran. He never ran. If he had figured out a way to get out of that pocket, maybe he couldn't figure out a way, but I didn't see it that way. I didn't see him like trapped in there. Maybe his foot wasn't as good as it had been in the recent weeks, but I didn't see even an attempt for him to get out and keep those defenders honest. They were able to pin their ears back. And by the way, where the hell did J.K. Dobbins go in the second half? Okay, J.K., I did not see any indication that he was hurt. None, 0. That was play calling. That does belong on Giro, I think, or scheme or something, because they did run Gus. And they did run, not Kamani, Haskins. Right? He got a couple carries. But is like all of a sudden there was no JK in the second half. He maybe got 1 or 2 carries the whole second half, if I'm not mistaken. I didn't look up a lot of stats for this pod, by the way. I figured at this point stats aren't super important. It's more how we feel and what we saw. But for me, there was a huge absence of JK in the second half.
Yeah, they got away from the run. And I remember watching it too, like it's because that interior was flat out getting their asses kicked so bad. I watched it. I was like, oh, they're done with this. Like, they're kind of just done with this.
It's not funny, but it is.
What you said earlier, like, we know they're going to attack the interior, like, obviously. But it's like, well, we didn't expect you guys to get pancaked in a second. Yeah. Like, I was counting 1 Mississippi 2. Like, they're on Justin. I was like, oh, no.
I swear to God, Bradley Bozeman was on roller skates on a couple plays, dude.
It was bad. Like, those guys got whipped, and that's kind of why they just slowly just said, all right, like, we are pulling back on this because it's killing us. And, you can't find success with no balance. Our offense is already what it is, and it's super easy to just dial in on it as a defense, and especially a defense who is already good. They're a good defense, and then they just played out of their minds. They had a ton of confidence. They matched up well with everybody. But back to Justin with the mobility thing, that's one thing that every quarterback in the playoffs is doing right now. And that's one thing that kind of sucks. And without being on the team or being in the locker room or knowing what's kind of going on, we're left like going, who knows what the heck's going, what happened? Is it, like you said, is Justin hurt? But if he's not hurt, it's like, hey man, this is like, I love Justin, and I think he's, I'll argue he's top 5 quarterbacks. But it's like, you've got to find a way. You got to improvise better. And I'm not saying like he wasn't thinking that. He probably he wants to win more than any of us.
Right.
And who knows how hard it really was to actually get out of that situation. I don't know what that defense was doing and how the linebackers were playing behind that. So it's easy for me to say that over here. Just as a fan, that's how we express it, is like, boy, because we know the type of difference that can make as a runner. And it was something that was truly missed in that game. But here we are. We looked at our weapons, and boy, did it get us this far with 11 wins and 6 losses. But then when it showed up in the playoff game, right? Like, this is what those weapons kind of get you. And we all kind of knew that. But with the way that we were playing, we thought, shoot, we could probably surprise some people, but it just didn't happen. And it is what it is. We're moving on.
Yeah, if it was football is such a physical game that you can't do this. But if it was, a 3-game series, a 5-game series, a 7-game series like they do in baseball and basketball, I pretty confident, we could hold our own against the Texans, the 2024 Texans, okay? And I don't want to take anything away from them because they came in and they gave us a pretty thorough butt whooping.
Yeah, and real quick, I just want to say we had it. We had the beginning of the game. We had a section of momentum. We just couldn't capitalize on it. Like, if we could you imagine if we could have just got touchdowns and did something with those turnovers as opposed to punting in the beginning of the game? Because then there was that moment, like you described earlier, where CJ had that rollout scramble and converted that first down. They got it back, and then it was that they had the current the entire game. So my point is if we could have executed, and maybe next year when we actually have the weapons, those are things that we will be able to do more frequently, but we couldn't, and we lost it. And it sucks because we had those opportunities in the beginning when, there was that fumble from Mechie, we got the ball back, we had field position. We had our moments in this game early. We just couldn't do jack with it.
Well, and you could reflect back, as I'm getting ready to say this, you could reflect back on the Jacksonville game and go, oh, shit, we got out to a 27-0 lead, and then we shit the bed. If you guys haven't learned by now, I'll let some, 4-letter words fly from time to time on the pod. I hope you're not offended. But this is not a Brandon Staley team where we would just, crap all over ourselves. If we had gotten out to a 14 or 21 point lead, I would have felt pretty good that we could still pull this out with Jesse Minter's defense. Now, I'm not saying we shut them out, but, now they're climbing a really big uphill battle. And if we keep playing adequately, we should be able to pull it out. But yeah, no, we had our opportunities early on. And it's a thing about playoff football. It's kind of like, okay, you go preseason, right? Preseason's like, they don't count, and you're just playing to kind of knock some rust off and get a little rapport with your teammates and evaluate who's going to make the roster and who's not. Then you get in the regular season and you've got 17 games. They're all important, but they're one of 17, right? It's not like baseball or basketball where they're one of 135 or whatever it is, so they're much more significant. And then, of course, division games count like game and a half. But each individual game, you lose one, you're like, okay, we're not eliminated yet. And we just put that one behind us, we move on. Playoffs are a whole nother animal, right? It's a whole, just everything ratchets up a notch. Mistakes get amplified. Everything is more critical. And so mistakes, you can't make them. They will cost you more, and that's what we kind of witnessed in our case. Too many mistakes, and I would call not capitalizing on opportunities in the playoffs. I'll call those mistakes. Okay. You have to capitalize on those opportunities when it's the playoffs. Regular season, you can probably get away with some of that. Playoffs, No, you have to capitalize when you get an opportunity, because the other team, they're going to be hyped up and they're going to take advantage of every opportunity they get. So, yeah, offensively, I think we pretty much touched on all my points from an offensive side of the interior offensive line. Dropped passes. How many drop passes? Way too many drop passes. I think we were the second highest team in the league this season, at least in the when the regular season concluded, of drop passes. So Herbert had the second highest amount, and I think it was Jordan Love who was number one.
That's right.
If I'm not mistaken. I still catch a few things in here once in a while that stick. So that's, look, guys, it is what it is. We knew that the skill positions were not going to be elite this season, right? So I'll go back to the fact that we overachieved between what Justin was working with on the interior line, not just Justin, Giro, everybody. Okay, Harbs, just what the team was, and the skill positions. And, instead of looking at the cup half empty, let's look at the cup half full. We've got a franchise quarterback in his prime. We've got two stud bookend tackles in their prime. Slater's still a young guy, okay? And Alt, man, that kid's going to just be a beast. I mean, the week before, and he just goes right over to the left side like he'd always stayed there from college and plays just a really good game. The kid's super talented. And then we got this kid by the name of Ladd McConkey, who is the real deal. The guy's legit. That catch over the middle for that 85-yard touchdown, are you shitting me? His balance, his hands, and then his speed to turn it and take it upfield. So there's a lot of things on the offensive side of the ball to be very optimistic about. And we know what our defense did this season, shifting gears to the defensive side of the ball. And there's a lot to be optimistic about on the defensive side of the ball, from Jesse Minter all the way down. But in this game, let's talk about these guys played a very uneven game as well. They put 32 points up on us, and what would it be? 9 of those were not the defense's responsibility, right? If I'm not mistaken. Pick 6, and then that 2-point blocked PAT.
Yeah.
So that'd be 9 points. So would that be 23? Was on our D, which is 10 points over. Well, technically not anymore because they finished at 17 points, but it's over their average as the number one scoring defense. And so I made some notes here. They couldn't get Texans off the field as the game wore on. It was really interesting. The Texans softened us up with a quick passing game in the early part of the game. They basically barely ran. They only ran like 2 or 3 attempts, and it was all short crossers in the middle. Nothing in the outside of the numbers. And just boom, 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 boom. Softened us up. By the way, Perryman got injured, like I believe on the first series, Perryman. It may have been the first play.
I was going to ask you, Kirk, because I was watching the game with a buddy, and I was like, what the heck? And Denzel's out. I was like, when did he leave? I didn't even catch that.
An elbow injury, like I think it was the very first tackle he made in the game. And he went straight to the locker room, dude. He didn't go to sidelines, didn't go to blue tent, straight to the locker room. And that showed, okay, Denzel is an enforcer in the middle, period. Okay, so Colston came in, Junior Colston came in. And Troy Dye, I think, came in immediately. Troy Dye came in and filled in immediately. But we noticed the absence of Perryman on defense. Couple stats. I did note a couple stats. Time of possession, 35 minutes to the Texans, 25 minutes to us. So not as skewed as I had thought it was as I was watching the game. I'm watching the game going, oh, it's going to end up being 40 minutes for them, 20 minutes for us, like we had done the previous 2 weeks to our opponents. But it was a little more even than I thought. But it was still in favor of the Texans. And that just came later and later in the game when we couldn't get them off the field. 429 yards for the Texans, 261 for us, be honest with you, I was surprised we had 261. I thought it was going to be less than that. And a big chunk of that was that Ladd touchdown, obviously. Third down conversions. They were only 5 for 14, so it wasn't like they lit it up.
We were both bad on third down for a while.
We sucked. We sucked. Okay, but we let them have 5 of 14 on third, and guess how much on fourth? 2 for 2. When it's critical, 2 for 2. So they got both their fourth down conversions. So very uneven game, very uncharacteristic game by our defense.
Yeah, and honestly, you just can't blame the defense. They hung tough. It was kind of like a resemblance of what they've done all year, but they just kept cooking. And credit to C.J. Stroud, he extended plays and he made things happen when it mattered most. And he does deserve a lot of credit for that. He looked like a good quarterback who eventually he hung tough, because it wasn't going good for him in the beginning, but he found a way and he found openings on our defense and he made it work. And as the game went on, you could slowly see it as the defense kept getting out on the field because we were just pushing 3 and outs, especially when you see Joe Mixon break to the outside and he stutter steps and our corner's going, can't to you. It's a sign of these guys getting tired and kind of getting beat up. They hung tough, but, they just couldn't keep it going 4 quarters. And quite frankly, I don't blame them. That's just kind of what happens in those type of games. And like you said, they peppered us in the beginning with those short passes, and they eventually got the run game going. We've seen that on our side of the ball when we've been able to do that to opponents. It was not our day. And that's really my summary on the whole thing. It was just, they hung tough, but
that second quarter play, Andrew, where we had them pinned deep, and they're coming out of their own end zone. I think we literally pinned them at the 1.
Oh God!
And they were coming out of their own end, and we had them 3rd and 16, and they fumbled the snap. And you're like, yes, we're going to jump on this thing, or at least we're going to pin them even further back, and they're going to punt. And we're going to get good field position. And C.J. Stroud it bounced just right. He picks it up, rolls to his right, and makes that that crazy throw. That had to have been very deflating for the defense, knowing, man, we worked this hard to get them pinned back, and they just pull that rabbit out of their hat. So to me, that was like huge shift from that point forward in the game. And I think it probably, even though they're professionals, they say, oh, no, that stuff happens and you just come back and play the next play. But I think that one, it took its toll. And then, they, between 4 interceptions, 4 turnovers, so they're getting 4 more possessions and us going 3 and out, our defense spent too much time on the field and they got worn down. So, but, they didn't get them off the field, and that's their job. And so, like I said, it was all 3 phases of the game. You saw that extra point. I think it was on Ladd's 85-yard touchdown. Okay. The extra point on that gets blocked.
I was like, at that moment going, okay, like 2 touchdowns and 2 conversions. And I'm like, oh no, now we need an extra 2 points.
Right. And Dicker's waiting for it to come down, and he bats it like he's a quarterback and it's going to be incomplete instead of catching it and taking it down. And so it's a live ball because it never passed the line of scrimmage. And you would think, they're trained on the fair catch free kick anomaly play. You would think they were trained up on hey man, gets blocked, it's live ball. If it doesn't get past the line of scrimmage, it's live ball. So all 3 phases of the game, we just were not sharp. Better team won that game.
Like on that,
says anything else? It's not watching football.
Yeah, like I had another friend text me, and he was like, the moments where Justin wasn't getting sacked, I got a text that said Justin's hanging on to the ball too long, and I'm like, Justin has no separation from anyone out there. That's what you're seeing.
They got two good corners.
He's a Terminator. No one, honestly, he's one of the best at going through his progressions. And I was watching Justin. I'm like, that's why he threw picks too. It's like Justin isn't afraid he wants to win, and he wants to win. I've said this again more than all of us, but there was no separation from our receivers other than Ladd. We're excluding Ladd, obviously. He's a stud. But that's what was going on when you guys noticed that Justin the moments when he didn't have someone in his lap, he was trying to go, where am I fitting this ball? And there wasn't quite
his windows. These are his windows.
Especially when these defenders have all the confidence and they're just all over our guys. And then there's that play where we're trying to convert. I can't remember if it's third and let's say 3. Q does like a zig route that's like an out, right? And he's literally runs it 2 yards. And I remember that play vividly. It wasn't like he got pressed at the line. It was just he ran it a yard or 2 short. And it's like, that's the kind of stuff that you're getting paid big money and you're at the big stage. What are we doing, guys? Like, shit, I don't care if at least get in position to where if it is incomplete or whatever, you were at least going to get a first down. He caught it, and it was like you were still short.
Yeah.
That's the kind of stuff that just sucks to see.
Oh, that always pisses me off. Hey, you need 5 to make a first down. Don't run a 4-yard route. Okay.
This is the NFL, boys. What are we doing?
Yeah. Don't want to belabor it too much, but I think we covered the gist of why we fell short in this game.
Yeah.
And there's plenty of places to lay blame, and bless Coach Harbaugh's heart. He basically took full blame, and of course Justin did as well, which that's what you do when you're in those positions of leadership, making the big bucks. But there's plenty of blame to go around, with maybe the exception of Ladd McConkey. Okay, Ladd did everything he could to help out, but Justin's literally throwing in windows like this big. You saw that pass to Tucker Fisk on the left sideline. I mean, dude, that ball was like that. I mean, Justin put that thing in a window that was so tiny.
To Tucker Fisk. If you guys have any idea of who Tucker Fisk is from Stanford, I told the guy next to me, I was like, I wouldn't have thrown that shit. I would have ran. But bless his heart, Justin had faith in dude. God,
he made the catch, dude.
Sick. That was such a great throw. But I was kind of like, Justin, damn, that was incredible.
He dimed it, man. On the run to his left, he just dimed it. So, yeah, it wasn't pretty. But look, do you have any kind of last comments on the game itself?
No, I said it earlier, guys. It's just we made it this far with what we had, and unfortunately those were the results. But it's nothing to really hold your head down about. We should feel proud that in year 1 we went 11-6. That's a good start.
We should not have made it this far. Okay. Now, I would make a case that we should have been 12-5. Okay. We should not have lost the game to the Cardinals, but we did. The Cardinals beat us. Okay. We didn't lose to the Cardinals. They beat us. Okay. That was the second game we got out physical this season. The Pittsburgh Steelers out physicaled us, and then the damn Cardinals out physical.
The Bucs whipped us.
Yeah. But I counted that game as a win. And if we were the team I thought we should be, then we could have gone from 5-12 to 12-5, which would have been insane, right? But 11-6, are you kidding me with this roster? And, the roster's not a slouch across the board. I mean, we got Khalil Mack, Joey Bosa, Thule, Justin, JK. I mean, you can go down. We got stars, right? Derwin. But this was year 1 of remaking this roster after being in salary cap hell. And Joe Hortiz did an incredible job pulling this roster together. And then as injuries cropped up, pulling people, off the waiver wire and making a couple little trades here and there. So look, we overachieved. Okay, this team should have never been 11-6. It should not have been 11-6. More or less, get the top wild card spot in the AFC. So that goes to coaching more than anything. Coaching makes a difference. Coaching matters. If you guys haven't figured that out yet, coaching matters. All right, Don Coryell, Bobby Ross, Marty Schottenheimer. And now we got Harbs. Appreciate the fact we got a coach who knows how to coach and who knows how to motivate guys to win games when other coaches would lose them. Okay, so this is the low water mark. I believe I've heard other people who are a lot smarter than me say that this is probably low water mark for the Chargers in their entire Harbaugh era, however long we have and are blessed that this will exist. So don't hang your heads, man. If this is what we get in year one, imagine what we're going to get in year two when we keep filling the voids that we have in this roster. So what I'd like to do now, and maybe not dwell on it too much, because I think we've touched on a little bit already in the pod, but take a step back and just kind of, summarize the 2024 Chargers season, because it wasn't a failure. It was a wild success. Yeah, the last game of the season is always going to be a loss unless you're a crappy team and you don't even make the playoffs and you happen to win your last garbage game in week 18. Okay? Otherwise, every team's exit at the end of the season is going to be a loss, and it hurts. Okay? But this was a wildly successful season, in my opinion, as a long time Chargers fan. To go 11-6 and make the playoffs, yeah, we put a stinker up in the playoffs. It happens, right? But the fact that we even got there, you know how many other teams want to be there? All the ones who didn't make it. Okay, so we were in the show. We didn't get past week one. We were one and done. But my goodness, we won 11 games, right? Out of 17 games, we won 11. We made the playoffs. Look, it is what it was. We know what our weaknesses are. We've had 18 games to see what our weaknesses are. It's not a mystery. We know what they are. Joe Hortiz is really good at his job. I got a lot of confidence. He's going to do a tremendous job patching up those holes. So again, I'd say we overachieved. We've talked about that for a couple weeks now. This team has overachieved. We were playing with house money going into the playoffs, period. End of subject. So you can't sit there and go, we were robbed. No, we were ahead of the game. We were playing for free in the playoffs. Ton to be excited about this team going forward. We have a quarterback by the name of Justin Herbert, who is an absolute stud in his prime. Okay. We've got a stud right tackle, rookie, no longer, by the name of Joe Alt. By the way, we have a guy on the other side, too, who's still a very young man in Slater, who's a stud. And then we got this kid by the name of McConkey, who's a stud. Okay. Oh, by the way, we got a guy by the name of Cam and another guy by the name of Tarheeb that we got in the 5th round. Those guys are going to be on the Chargers for years to come. They're going to be huge contributors on this team. So there's a lot to be excited about going forward. Andrew, jump in, man.
And to piggytail on that is, if you guys haven't noticed, Derwin James kind of looks like he's coming back to form. That was a guy who, during the Staley tenure, I guess in a way you could say took a step back, not to his fault, but maybe to scheme and whatever they had going on defense. I mean, the whole defense didn't have a clue of what they were doing. So as far as another player kind of coming back who essentially is an all-pro, he's second-team all-pro this year. Great, that's a pretty cool bounce back on his part, just to add to, the things that we got going on. Identity is one thing that this Charger team approached this season with. We were going to be blue collar. We were going to be tough. You weren't going to find drama on this team. We're not the aggressive team that's going to go for it on on fourth downs. We're going to play it smart, and we're going to let our defense, who is rugged, tough, hard-nosed, all those things, we all saw it. the identity of this team was something that we started with and we kept it all the way through to the end. We saw Harbaugh, who came in and said, yes, you can throw it for 5,000 yards a season. We've seen that. You can break all these records, but you don't need to do that. And he was able to find success with Justin without having to have him have all the pressure on his back, which is, in my opinion, incredibly important, especially for how the future is going to go. I look at this team like a team that, well, let's say we walked in, like we bought this house, but at first we had to get all this like rental furniture. At the end of that's kind of how I look at our roster is like year one, we had to kind of clear some debt. So right now we have this rental furniture, but year two is where we can start. All right, now we can start buying things for this house. And I really think that that's where this is headed as far as direction goes, because we got rid of all this, the fancy stuff that we had that was no longer serving us. Right. And we've already gone down that road when we talk about our previous players, but at the end of the day, those were Phillip Rivers' weapons, guys. If you don't remember, Mike Williams, Keenan Allen, and Austin Eckler, those aren't really Justin's weapons. Those are kind of Phillip Rivers' weapons. Now it's time to turn the page in a new chapter. Year one, we fixed our books. And this was what we had in year one, and it wasn't a lot. When we've gone over this, we found success in that, which is awesome. So going forward into the next year, guys, I'm going to tell you right now. So I don't have the bankroll of the Chargers, but if you look at a very popular website, it's called Over the Cap. We are sitting with $73 million in cap space, and there are players that we still need to address who we may not retain. So that number I've already messed around with it. We can bump that. We could bump that around. We're going to be over $100 million in cap space, not to mention the draft picks. We saw what Joe Hortiz can do. The future is bright with this team.
It is. Like I said, I think this is the low water mark. That was a great analogy. We've got this really beautiful house, not in Malibu or Pacific Palisades, but it's still sitting up on the hill. And unfortunately, in year one, buying the house kind of broke the bank, and we weren't really able to furnish it. Now we've got a bankroll, and Hortiz knows how to, he knows how to buy groceries. He knows what he's doing, and not just throw money around. Any general manager can throw money at players. Okay. That's not how you win. I've seen it for 40 plus years. This is not like baseball. Okay. You can't just go throw money at players and put together a dream team of stars. The NFL don't work that way. Okay. They don't mesh and have that, it's the ultimate team game. And we saw that this season, right? We brought in journeyman after journeyman after it, and then Harbs knows how to bring these guys in and make them part of the whole, with the exception of maybe DJ Chark. I don't know what happened there, but everybody else came into the fold and contributed. And so, we know what those holes are. I know Hortiz knows what those holes are. Okay. This guy's super sharp. And so we'll go to work. We have a lot of free agents that we're going to have to address right out of the gate. And so, if you want, we can just roll right into free agency, kind of look at.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. This website right here, I've got a list of them. I don't know if you do as well.
I've got them right in front of me, and there's some big names on that list, dude.
Yeah, let's do a quick little run through.
Okay, I'm just going to read off all the names real quick. Okay, and then we can kind of go through, and I don't want to belabor each one, but we can go through. Maybe let's do this. Keep, walk.
Ooh. Let's do it.
All right, I'm just going to, real quick, I'm going to run through all the names so that your brain can kind of work on them real quick. J.K. Dobbins, Khalil Mack, Morgan Fox, Tier Tart, Puna Ford, Christian Fulton, Simi Fehoko, Hayden Hurst, Troy Dye, DJ Chark, Bradley Bozeman, Eli Apple, Tony Jefferson, Marcus May, Elijah Molden, Sam Mustapher, Nick Neiman, Josh Palmer, Denzel Perryman, Jalen Rager, Chris Rumpf, Asante Samuel Jr., J.K. Scott, Easton Stick, Taylor Heineke, Shaq Quarterman. That's the list I got. Did I miss anybody?
No, that looks good.
Cool. J.K. Dobbins.
I want to keep JK.
Okay, so let's do this. Like Gladiator.
Hold on, I'm not looking at you yet. I'm looking at my screen. What were you doing? Yeah, absolutely. So JK gets a thumbs up. And real quick, guys, as we name this off, I am going to leave room for pause because there is a number that comes with these players that is important. Now, if we franchise or tenor J.K. Dobbins, we're only looking at like $5 to $6 million. That is reasonable for the type of player that he is. So that's certain. When I look at these numbers, that's a keep for sure.
Yeah, and I don't want to belabor each player because we've got a whole off season to where you and I and Brennan, bless his heart, if he doesn't have to work late every night, we're going to get in here and we're going to dig. Okay, we're going to get into each one of these players and we're going to dig deep. Okay, so for this, let's keep it fairly high level. But I would just say on the JK thing, JK's come right out right away and said he wants to be part of the Chargers.
Yeah,
I don't think he's going to be out looking for the biggest contract. And by the way, he didn't just put up 2,000 yards. All right, so it's not like teams are going to be beating down his back door to give him, I don't know. LaDainian Tomlinson money or Derrick Henry money, right? But there's going to be some teams who want him, and I think he's going to give the Chargers a friendly deal, and I think he's going to want, a little bit of, give me 3 years or something versus just franchise me, right? But let's just run through the list. So JK, cool. Khalil Mack. Yeah, I both those guys get 2 thumbs up. Morgan Fox. All right.
I have room for pause. I love Morgan Fox, but I look at the numbers and I might have to move off from him.
All right.
I love him. Don't get me wrong.
He's cap friendly, but we'll get into all the workings of this stuff. Tier Tart.
Yeah.
But even more so than Tier Tart, Poona Ford. Christian Fulton.
I'm going to pass.
All right. Simi Fehoko.
I'm going to pass.
I'm going to have to pass. Hayden Hurst.
I'm going to pass.
Pass. Troy Dye. I'm keeping. I think he's cap friendly.
Yeah.
And I think he's we're going to get another name down here in about another half a dozen that I think they go together. DJ Chark. Pass. We were fine without him. He never showed us anything. Bradley Bozeman. I'm going to say kind of this. I don't want him as a starter, but if he'll take backup money, I would love to have him as a backup. Eli Apple.
Yeah, no.
Tony Jefferson.
I'd love to keep him. We're not going to give him this contract that's you're going to be a starter at another
team. A 1-year deal.
Right.
Yeah, he's old. But I think he brought a lot of value to the team, and I think Hortiz believes and Harbs believes he brought more than just his on-the-field play. And so I think paying him, decent money to hang around, play a little bit of ball, but otherwise just kind of be, big brother to the secondary.
Yeah, Tony rocks.
Yeah, it's easy money, right? Marcus May, no. But Elijah Molden.
Yes, that's a thumbs up. We'll see how his health goes in the offseason. But if you guys saw the interview after a game, we're looking at a guy that's not really concerned about the money. He's more concerned at the opportunity of just still being in the NFL, and he likes this situation with the Chargers. Can't really say no to that, especially with when we saw how good he was playing. That's a guy that's worth keeping around.
And he grew up a Chargers fan.
Let's go.
Played for the Chargers. So there's a little loyalty there, I think.
Yeah.
Sam Mustipher.
Nope.
Nick Neiman. All day long. Josh Palmer.
I'm not signing Josh Palmer because it's a contract deal, so we're going to have to.
There's no room. There's really we need to empty some seats to bring new.
It's time to find separation on the field for Justin, and I love Josh, but
This is an interesting one. Denzel Perryman.
This is interesting. Here's the thing. I don't think we're in a position in the draft to ultimately find a high-end prospect. I think that Denzel's price point is reasonable. I think he's someone, I will give him the thumbs up.
Me too. I like Denzel, and I think the fact that he's an original Chargers draft pick back in the San Diego days, I do believe he would be cap friendly for the opportunity to be a role player. So that's kind of how I see it. Colson's going to come in, right? He's the heir apparent, but I think Denzel can look at the situation and go, so you're telling me I don't have to like play every snap for 17 games, but I can come in and, fill in obvious run situations. I can smack some people around and still be an NFL player, live in Southern California,
He fits well. Yeah, he fits well with his role, and he's cap friendly. I think it's a reasonable person to keep, especially because Junior still needs time. We haven't seen this play from Junior that says, "Oh, he's good to go. Like, let's go save some money." I don't think we're ready yet. I think we stay smart.
I think Denzel's a good father figure, on the field kind of father figure, kind of like Tony Jefferson, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So you're getting more than just on the field play with some of these players, right? Jalen Reagor.
I mean, for me, it's kind of a no. I mean, unless there's like this practice squad area thing for him.
Well, we're not moving off of QJ. He's under contract,
right?
So maybe if we've got an empty chair after free agency in the draft,
right?
Chris Rump,
no.
Asante Samuel Jr. He's got my thumbs up. He's a contract year.
I lean towards yes, and because guys, as fans, I want to remind you that with how we're looking in the draft, well, number one, we got the two young guys that clearly can hold it down, but you got to have more than two. And Asante, he may not be the best tackler, but he plays corner very well. And we're not going to be reaching for a corner in the draft. And I don't think we're going to go try to spend money on someone on the outside. We already got someone in-house who plays decent ball. I think it's worth keeping him around. So it's a yes.
Yeah, I think he came out right after, I think it was the same day as our loss to the Texans. And look, I love the Chargers. I want to be a Charger. I want to be here. I hope I get to stay here. And that was like him. That wasn't just words. Okay. That was like a video of him.
Right.
Okay. Talking to the media. And so if the numbers are right, good cornerbacks are hard to find, and you can never have too many of them. Okay. Remember that. This is a passing league. All the rules are skewed to the offense. You can never have enough good DBs.
And Asante missed like the whole season, so it's not like he's going to get this record-setting contract, No,
but he'll get a good contract because he's a good DB. But is he going to give the Chargers a little bit of, hey, this is where I was drafted. I believe in the system. We're on our way up, yada, yada, yada. And that's why I also opted for Christian Fulton. I liked his play this season. I think he held down his own, and I don't think he's going to light the world on fire as far as a big contract. So that was kind of my thinking with Christian Fulton as well.
Yep.
J.K. Scott, no brainer. You got to keep the guy. I think he does his job very well. Easton Stick.
It's time.
Sorry, Justin. I know you love Easton, but unless he'll hang around the team for free or become a team mascot, Taylor Heineke.
And that's why Taylor Heineke's getting paid. He's getting paid lots of money. Because of that, there's no room for Easton, and Heineke plays pretty dang good football as a backup.
Yeah, and we will probably bring in a camp body or two, free agent, or maybe we could do a late draft pick to get that camp arm and somebody to maybe groom. But clearly we got Heineke for a reason. We had plenty of discussions on this pod why we desperately needed Heineke during the preseason when Justin was down, and Stick showed he was not the guy if Justin went down. Taylor can play, pay him, keep him around. And then the last guy on the list was Shaq Quarterman, and I go Shaq Quarterman who?
Yeah, that's a no. And let me see. Yeah, that's it, man.
Yeah. I think that's everybody that is an unrestricted. We've got a couple restricted free agents, or, oh gosh, what's the other term? Yeah. But those guys we have options on. And it's only like 2 or 3 guys. This is the list. These are the important guys. And you've got, I don't know, I would say close to maybe 7 or 8 that are what I've got on my list is like kind of really important guys that keep them around. They know the system. They've played well. And again, in an off season, you're not going to be able to fill every single role, especially if you start letting guys walk. So we'll see how it shapes up. But I like how Hortiz cooks. So I'm pretty confident. He's long already got this list. He's known where this list is coming out, and he's probably already got his gold stars next to the ones that he wants to make sure he gives an offer to stick around. So, yeah.
So there are a few other players that we can move off from that have contracts, but also to the point where it's like kind of we can kind of cut them and have like a small amount.
Are you talking maybe like Trey Pipkins?
Exactly. So you want me to run through this side of things real quick?
Please. No, I would love to hear who you've got on here who they're under contract, but it might be time to move on.
All right. So now I'm going to run through everyone just to make it easier for me as I go through this. And there's going to be some obvious, like, we're not moving on from them. But at the top, it's Justin, no brainer. So the second highest paid guy on our team is Joey Bosa, guys. And he is a total of $36 million.
For 2025? Because I know he took a pay cut in 2024.
Yeah, so in 2025, that's what he would be. He'd be $36 million. He'd have a base salary of $13 million. It's a pretty steep thing to have Joey. So that would really have to be restructured, I think, to keep Joey around.
I would agree with that, and I figured they would.
Me personally, I'm moving on from Joey.
Okay.
Derwin James,
I can see that.
I'm keeping.
That. Yep.
Obviously, Rashawn Slater, he's going to get a big contract. So the next one here, Trey Pipkins.
Yeah.
We're talking about a $10 million guy at right guard. I'm moving on from him. I think that money can suit helping out some of these free agents, fill in other areas. And I think that this is a draft where we can tackle and find actually a star early in the first couple of rounds at the interiors part. So that's my opinion on that.
Yeah. What I would try and do if I was Hortiz is I would give Pipkins an opportunity to become a swing backup. Because he can play 4 of the 5 positions.
Ideally, that's how it would work. But the offensive line thing is so desperate out there that there could be some heavy bidders out there that would still want to pay him his $10 million. So,
and then I would say absolutely take him, please, and make him a starter. And hopefully you're on our schedule next year.
Yeah, you can. Okay. I guess you can go to the Raiders if you want.
Yeah. Oh well, Telesco's gone. We can talk about that here in a minute too. But I think Pipkin would be serviceable in a backup role at backup role money.
Absolutely.
So it'd be interesting to see how Hortiz handles that. But that's what I would do is I would go to Pip and say, here are your options. Number 1, we cut you. You're a free agent. Best of luck to you. We love you. Or behind door number 2 is $5 million annually, and you're going to be a backup role player. And we'd love to keep you on the team, but that's going to be your role. We're going to be looking to fill your role with somebody else as a starter.
All right. So how do you feel about this player, Gus Edwards?
I'll move on.
I'm moving on as well.
Yeah.
All right. How about Bud Dupree?
I'll move on.
I'm going to move on to, guys, Bud Dupree is pushing about $4 million, and we're definitely in a position to add some young people there. All right, Jamari Salyer. He's still young enough that we don't have to pay him.
Yeah, and I think I would keep Jamari, kind of like Pip. I think Jamari, and he can play snaps in a game. He can cover for a game or two. I wouldn't make him my starter. And part of this is I still remember when Slater went down and he moved to left friggin' tackle, and he played admirably almost an entire season at left tackle for us as a rook. And so I wouldn't move on from him if the number's right.
All right, so here's the last three, guys. Otito Ogbonna. I'm moving on from Otito. I liked him when he first came to the Chargers, hoping that there would be a little more upside to his play, and it just hasn't quite been that.
What's he making?
He is making...
I mean, if he's $1 million,
he's not making anything right now, but he will be up for... So this is year 3, year 4. He will basically be kind of...
a free agent, yeah.
Right.
I don't know. I might keep him around if I don't have another body. He was that kid out of UCLA. They had a lot of high hopes for. Mistaken. But yeah, I mean, you never hear his name called. I don't.
Right. Yeah. And these three here are all they were in the same draft class, so the same kind of numbers, scenarios. Ja'Sir Taylor.
He's gone.
He's gone. And Dean Leonard.
I'd keep Dean over Ja'Sir.
I would. He had that incredible interception. So if I had to keep, I guess, one of those three, I would keep Dean, just because when I think about the Chargers in this draft, don't be surprised if we go defensive tackle in the first 2 rounds.
Yeah. I'd be a little surprised knowing our needs on offense and the interior line in particular.
Mm-hmm.
I'd be a little surprised if we went defense, but if their board says this is clearly the best player on the board.
Exactly. Where we get pushed down. Now, there is we're going to be able to tackle the interior and the where we're hurting in the first 2 rounds, but we need firepower. So we'll get into all that later. But yeah, so those are the ones. And out of those 3, I'd lean with keeping Dean.
Gotcha. Yeah, and I would agree with that. And over Dean, I would keep Fulton. Okay, so that'd be kind of my hierarchy is Asante, then Fulton, then Dean, and I wouldn't even keep Ja'Sir. I wouldn't even just let him move on.
Yeah.
I saw too much from him.
Yeah, he just struggled every year. The guy just never quite really put it together, and you can't pay a guy like that, and that's a position where if we're going to give some money, let's give him his share.
Yeah, real quick, just for the crowd here, give me and if you're not prepared to, that's fine. I can give you mine to initiate, but give me your hierarchy of needs.
Yeah, so I've got it written down here. So for me, at the top of the list, I'm starting with interior offensive line.
Yep. Full-time, big time, full-time. Absolutely. Justin has to be protected.
Yeah, and this is a really good draft class. There's some good tackles. So when I say this, hang with me here. There's some good tackles, and when there's good tackles, that leaves the interior to kind of slide down to the later part of the first round and to have some people left over in the second. So we're going to have an opportunity to get – and there's some good interior offensive linemen, guys.
Well, and let's differentiate a little bit. Center is a must.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I would say center before guard. We need a center.
Yeah, the center thing's interesting. It really is, because like last year, there was some centers. There was the interior class last year was confusing to me. I saw some guys that didn't look very good in college, and then I saw them at the senior pro day just get their butts kicked, and I was like, oh, these guys suck ass, and they're kicking butt in the NFL right now. So it's a tricky thing to look at. The Rams are doing an excellent job with some 5th and 6th round linemen that'll blow you away. So yeah, the center position is going to be interesting, whether we go with a better vet and spend some money, or if we kind of find one in the draft. But there's a couple in the draft that are pretty good too.
Yeah, I don't know. Just kind of looking at free agents that were coming up this season on other teams, I don't know if I saw like an obvious like stud center that was going to become a free agent. But traditionally, your Corey Linsleys of the world are, 4th, 5th, 6th rounder kind of guys.
Corey went in the fifth round.
Yeah. So we don't have to go get a guy, in round 1 or 2, but we need the guy. And this is another reason I would keep Bozeman, okay? For no other reason than he's an experienced vet. I don't think he should be our starter. Let's go get a young stud, but is that young stud going to realize his potential in training camp and start? Or, kind of like Colston versus Perryman kind of thing. So, heck, I think Nick Hardwick he was at least a 3rd round, if not lower. I think he was 3rd out of Purdue. He might have been lower. He came in the same draft as Drew, if I'm not mistaken. And Drew was our 2nd round pick out of Purdue. So he might have been the top of the 3rd round that year. But I would say center before either guard position. And we're probably not going to be able to fill all 3. So I would say, since Zion's a 1st round pick, at least give him another opportunity to realize his potential and surround him by even more talent to maybe cover up any of his deficiencies.
So why don't you go ahead and just take what you think would be the next need?
I'm going pass catching tight end. I think even before another wide receiver, what Justin could do with a true Antonio Gates, Tony Gonzalez, Travis Kelce, Rob Gronkowski type, or Mark Andrews type of player, or the kid they just got up in Las Vegas, right? Brock Howard. I would put that over wide receiver in this offense. What this offense is intended to be, that's a more valuable position.
100%.
Yeah.
There's no question about that. And guys, we're looking at a awesome tight end class. Here's some perspective on the tight end class coming into the NFL, guys. The leading receiver in yards in all of college football was a tight end. And he's basically the 3rd tight end on the rankings. Take that for what you will.
Yeah. Well, that's my number 1 next. But I agree with you. Interior offensive line first, but immediately behind that, Justin needs another true weapon. I'd keep Will Dissly. Absolutely 100%. We're not keeping Hayden Hurst based on our rundown of free agents, but I'd keep Will.
Yeah, Will came to block. He happened to excel in the pass game. He was the one that said, "I'll catch the football," and it's like, thanks, Will.
Yeah, no, I really like Will Dissly, and I think he fits what we're trying to do. And by the way, he can sneak out and be a weapon, but he'd be even more effective if there was a true other tight end on the other side of the line that is pretending to block, but is a deadly, deadly weapon in the passing game. So then I'll go 3rd with wide receiver 1B to complement wide receiver 1A, which is Ladd McConkey.
I like it. I like it a lot.
And by the way, I'm not going to pull that guy in the draft. We've already talked about who I want.
You're smart. And that's
not T. Higgins, ladies and gentlemen. Because I don't think we're going to pay T. Higgins money. There's a guy out there that's a free agent this year, And the guy who made him really successful as his coach from the time he came in the league as a rookie just happens to be the wide receivers coach on the Los Angeles Chargers, a guy named Sanjay Lau. Do you know who I'm talking about?
I do.
I will name them for you at home who don't know. Metcalf, DK Metcalf. I would love to see lightning bolts on that boy. That would bring me back to those David Boston games.
David Boston.
That guy was a beast. We did not get him at his prime, but he was just one big boy. DK's got a lot of tread left on his tires. He was not the main option in Seattle this year under the new regime. He's a free agent. And I got a sneaky suspicion he would love to partner back up with a guy named Sanjay Lau. And he would love to have a guy with a howitzer throwing him the ball.
And for anyone who might come for Kirk, take a deep breath. It makes a lot of sense because the way that this offense thinks in the big picture is we're not really a team that's going to pay, like he said, big money to go get a receiver, nor is this offense really going to be designed to give one of those star receivers those kind of numbers. Like a Justin Jefferson isn't necessarily going to want to come here because he's not going to be getting those targets. That's not our game. We have a different idea. And for those of you who don't know, this wide receiver class is one of the weak points of this draft. It's quarterback and wide receiver are the two worst position groups in this draft. And we're sitting on the back end of the first round at pick 23, or maybe we'll see how it plays out, but that's kind of where I'm seeing it right now. They're in a wide receiver that we want to take in the first round at 23. So I really like Kirk's thinking here on that approach.
Thank you for backing me up on that. There was a lot of thought that went into that.
Okay. Well, we're going to have a lot of people who are going to have knee-jerk reactions to that because I understand your frustration.
Go back on YouTube 2-3 seasons ago and watch DK Metcalf absolutely dominate his competition. Jump balls, give it up. He's 50-50 ball all day long. Run after catch, beast mode, absolute beast mode, really good hands. He's got all the weapons. And by the way, instead of paying him $30 million a year like T. Higgins is going to get, we probably get this dude for somewhere in the neighborhood of $14-15 million a year. Is my hunch. Okay. I'd love to hear what the real number would be if we do get him, but I think we can get him on a number that is team friendly and get the production we need. And then, like Andrew's saying, deep tight end class. We can go get a stud pass catching tight end. So Lad McConkey, DK Metcalf, stud tight end yet to be named. Oh, and then we've got QJ down there, somewhere down there. I'm loving that.
All right. And so next, what I want to add is I want to actually look at the running back position.
Big time.
If you
That's
look,
my next, you're good. That's the next one on my list after that, because I will let Gus go. And Haskins is not, he's a role player guy. We don't know what Kamani is yet. I think we need another running back in the mix.
Look at all the other teams in the NFL right now who are finding success. It's in a tandem of two. Look at David Montgomery, who's sharing a backfield with Jahmyr Gibbs.
Yeah.
Look at JK. That's kind of what he needs. He needs a dance partner like that. JK isn't exactly this do-it-all kind of back. He does certain things very well. I want to keep him for that reason. But it would not hurt if we got a little younger and found a guy who can add a little juice to it as well. And this is the draft class to do that.
What kind of back would you like? Would you like a Darren Sproles kind of back? Or would you like a Joe Mixon kind of back?
Well,
or a Michael Turner kind of back?
I'm looking at going to the draft with this just because of what I'm seeing out of these prospects. And unfortunately, my favorite running back who I thought could be available for us in this situation is actually going to stay in college. So I don't know if I want like a heavy hitter or a pass catcher. But at the end of the day, we kind of need a pass catching kind of guy. We need a check down solution to complement JK.
Yep.
So we'll see what's on the board. There's 2 guys from Ohio State who have a lot of upside coming into the draft. Those could be some options, but there are more guys. There's a kid named Caleb Johnson from Iowa. We'll get into that later, but there are some viable options in the draft that are going to be worth getting a tad bit early. I'm not saying first round, but they're out there, and I think that's exactly the direction we're going to go. Stay young, not pay someone, complement a dance partner for JK.
Yeah, I'd like to see that more of that scat back, little Austin Eckler-ish, where he's a weapon out of the backfield in the passing game. Then I've got a tie here for kind of my last position, which is linebacker and DB. I've got them tied, and it kind of depends what we're going to do in free agency, whether how much importance we put on those positions.
And I think that's what was significant about us saying we're willing to spend the money, keep Neiman and Troy Dye around and Perryman. It's like, this isn't this all-star linebacking crew, but we're okay right there. And there is not anything in the draft that says give up capital to chase this person. We're sitting on the back end. So I'm pretty comfortable with where we're at with our roster as far as that goes.
And DB, right? Same thing. I think we could, if we retain at least one of the 2, Asante or Fulton, and then we've got Cam and Tarheeb, Molden, he's kind of a both.
We can get one in the back end to kind of fill,
Yes.
So we're still good.
So priority wise, it's down there. Mm-hmm. It's a place we need to pay attention to. Again, you need those role player guys, but Nick Neiman's a great role player and a stud on special teams. Troy Dye, he really played good when we needed him to most of the season. He stepped in. So, yeah, that would be kind of the last tier for me is, hey, there's a guy on the board and looks like he'd be a great Charger. Let's bring him in and see what he does. So, all right, man. Anything left as far as kind of just a preview of what our off season is going to entail, where our needs are, all that good stuff, free agents? Any last kind of words on that?
Last words will be, it will just be interesting to see how we approach the off season, guys, because that is going to dictate what kind of moves that they do go with on the draft, where they decide to take that number 1 and number 2 pick. Do they decide to trade up to get something significant in those first couple things that we find important?
Like that stud out of Penn State.
That is my favorite idea.
That's your fantasy wish list player right there.
Yeah. Or
Tyler Warren.
Yeah, Tyler Warren, guys. And I don't think it's any secret. I think the Charger people know who he is and what he's about. But at this point, we would be lucky if he fell into our lap. It's probably not going to happen. But,
dude, if he makes it past probably 12, 13, if he makes it past those middle numbers, I wouldn't be shocked if we trade up and get him.
I wouldn't be shocked either. It is the puzzle piece that this offense needs. Because like we talked about, this isn't about having the star wide receiver on the outside, but it is about having that solid chess piece on the line, the receiving tight end, but who's also could take your head off. So that fits us perfectly. That is something.
Yeah, because he's a beast. He doesn't shy away from contact. I mean, go on YouTube and Google him and go watch some tape. Now that the season's over and you need to geek out a little bit, that guy's really fun. He's like really fun to watch. Tyler Warren, Penn State. This is the fun part of when you do get into the offseason. You go, okay, we lost and the season's over. But then you get free agency, part 1. Then you get the draft. And you get post-draft free agency, part 2. We didn't fill this position free agency. We weren't able to fill it in the draft. and it's kind of part 2. And then you get into kind of training camp and who's getting, severed from teams that might fit us that didn't fit another team. So this is the next chapter of what's the 2025 Chargers going to look like. And I'm pretty excited. I know Andrew is.
Yeah, that last game.
He's not showing it, but he's super excited. Right
I'm excited, guys. And like all of you, I know that last game left a taste in our mouth that we didn't like. And now we're in a position to do something about it.
Yeah.
And we're ready for everyone next year. Watch out.
Well, and if there's a theme, the theme is we want to be lunch pail, hard hat wearing, toting mofos, and we want to be physical. We don't want to finesse you. We want to beat you up. So keep that in mind as we have people become free agents, who we retain, who we don't, free agency, the draft. Put your own personal bias aside of what you would like to see, like a Malik Neighbors, who had a great season for a crappy Giants team, okay? And instead, look at what they're trying to build here and look for those puzzle pieces that fit that mold, okay? And Tyler Warren's like the dream piece for that mold because he can block and he can catch. And, there's, what's his name? Our boy up in Frisco, tight end, Kittle. He's kind of like Kittle. He doesn't run for the hole. He runs at the defender. He's like, I'm just going to hit you. Okay. I'm just going to run you over because then you can't tackle me if you're on your back, which is what I love about a tight end position. So, all right, real quick, let's wrap this up. Just real quick, the 2024 season, the AFC West standings as they sit right now with where we're at. Okay, we know the Chiefs went 15-2. They won the AFC West again. And they were the number 1 seed in all of the AFC. And they weren't a very good team this year. Okay? They pulled just ugly games out of their ass. But that's what it takes to win in the NFL too. And it doesn't hurt that, maybe you get a call now and then that otherwise you shouldn't get. But it happens everywhere. I just watched a game last night. That was not an incomplete pass by man, I have a hard time with names sometimes. The quarterback of the Rams.
Matthew Stafford.
Yeah, Stafford. That was he was looking at the ground when he threw that ball. That was not an incomplete pass. That was a fumble, and it should have been called accordingly, or at least called intentional grounding, because that's really what he was doing. He was still in the pocket. It didn't matter there's somebody around. He didn't know there was somebody around. He knew what the play was. He just did this to just not get sacked. Okay, that was a crappy play. Peyton Manning and Eli Manning. I was watching the Manning cast last night, watching the game because it's a little more entertaining. And they're like, "Oh, that's not a pass, right? 2 quarterbacks. Oh, that's not a pass." And they, at the time, they had Belichick on, right? Belichick's like, "Oh no, they're going to call that incomplete." He's like, "You guys know it's an offensive league. There are no rules protecting the defense." And Belichick dead on, man.
Yep.
Anyway, I digress. It's easy to digress talking about the Chiefs and referee. So the Chiefs chiefed again this season, which is a good term. We finished second, 11-6. We finished second in the AFC West, first season under Harbaugh. But our season ended on an ugly wild card playoff loss to the Texans. It is what it is. We talked about it today. Broncos, 10-7. They got their asses spanked. Okay, it wasn't even close. The Bills, they got one early touchdown pass to go up 7-0, and the Bills said, "That's enough of that, and we're just going to slap you around." And they ended, was it 31-7? Yeah. They got spanked by the Bills. They're out. Okay, and by the way, Pittsburgh got their butts handed to them by Baltimore. So the better teams won. It's not always the case, but in this case, the division winners held their own in the AFC. It wasn't totally the case in the NFC. And then the Raiders, they've continued to Raider. They fired Antonio Pierce. A couple days later, they fired Telesco. So for the last 3 years or 4 years, they are now both coachless and general managerless. This will be, I think, the third time in I think it's the last 3, maybe 4 years since they chased Gruden out that they're having to replace all of their football leadership. And now they've got Brady in there. We'll see if anything's different. I don't think it'll be different until Mark Davis isn't making the calls for that team. But we'll see. Who knows? They could surprise us. We'll see who they get in there as a coach and GM.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what the Raiders do carrying up for next year. Who knows?
I mean, it would be interesting if they did something legit, right? Not just some crazy thing, but they, did something seriously like legit. And all of a sudden we're dealing with Andy Reid, Jim Harbaugh, Sean Payton, and coach yet to be named. I heard one guy on Insta talking about bringing Tomlin in. Right?
Right.
What would it take to get Peel Tomlin away from the Steelers? Maybe they're ready to finally let him go. I'm like, dude, you're going to be paying the Steelers if they're willing to part with Tomlin. You're paying them 2 first-round picks, just like Tampa Bay paid you for Gruden back in the day. You're at least parting with 2 first-round picks. If they did that, if that came to fruition, holy smokes, the AFC West would be loaded.
Yeah.
Tomlin's a great coach, dude. So it won't happen. Okay, it won't happen. I've been hearing talks about Ben Johnson out of Detroit. Does he really want to go coach that team?
No, he had opportunities like last year. He looked at the scape and was like, I'm going to stick with where I'm at. So I would be truly surprised if he settled for Las Vegas.
I don't know. It doesn't seem like a fit to me. But that's the state of the AFC West at the end of the 2024 season. Except for the Chiefs, they still get to play on. I'm sure we'll all continue to kind of see how the rest of the season plays out without us. Andrew, my friend, it's the end of the season, but it is not the end of Chargers football, nor is it the end of Chargers Cast. I can't promise you we'll be back every week now that regular games are over. But what I can promise you is we will be back when there's things to talk about, Chargers related. And so if you haven't already liked and subscribed and all that good stuff, do so you'll get notifications when a new podcast drops. The frequency will be a little bit less, maybe every couple weeks, and definitely when some important news comes out. There's a lot that Andrew and I are going to get in here and talk about and share with you guys as we're kind of looking at free agency, looking at the draft. And, Andrew, if you're game for it, we'll get in here and, maybe we'll do a pod per position group, Yeah. So, love to see you guys back for some of the off-season content. But with that, for Andrew at Bolt Casa, I got to stop saying that, dude. For Andrew at Bolt Casa and Kirk at ChargersCast, that's it for the 2024 Chargers Cast episode. We will see you guys next time. But in the meantime, bolt up. And Andrew, still, regardless, who got it better than us?
Nobody,
baby.
Let's go.
Yep. We'll catch you next time. Thanks, guys.
4 seconds left in the game, but this is likely the final play that matters. End zone wide open. What a night for Mike Williams. And the Chargers have their first lead of the night.
Hi, I'm Kirk Brewer, the creator and host of ChargersCast. I just wanted to say thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of ChargersCast. We really appreciate you engaging with the podcast. When I created ChargersCast, it was intended to be a podcast about everything Los Angeles Chargers from a fan perspective. It's by fans and for fans. So it's for you, and we really appreciate you being here. If you haven't done so already, please go down below, leave a comment, give us some feedback. We really love to hear from you. And if you haven't done so already, please subscribe and click the little bell so that you get notifications when new content drops. Again, thank you so much for tuning in to ChargersCast. And who's got it better than us? Nobody.